Sledgelords, Adam and Danny, how you doing?
It's been a turbulent week, has it not?
To say the least. Yeah. I've been a little down in the dumps, to be honest.
Have you been?
Well, I just feel like crap about like everything that happened. Even though I spoke about everything on the news the other day or whatever, but just in general, just the fact that what we did on a podcast, regardless of how it then happened, ended up having a negative effect on somebody that I care about's life.
It's what you get at him for trying to be LGBTQ plus positive.
That does occur to me now. Perhaps I should stay away.
So it all
But
hit
you're
me
right,
late.
though. Hanging out with people that think that it's tight to just expose people is a weird thing. I don't know how likely that would be to ever happen again, but it does kind of,
Yeah, and let's be honest, she is in a couple of Venn diagrams, Gracie, that would all lead to somebody like being less trustworthy with secrets. Porn performer, escort, probably party girl. There are a couple of subcategories she belongs to that might make her a little loose-lipped.
Right.
So it's not all because she's trans.
Right. You have mostly managed to stay out of the no jumper drama since you've been here.
I get sucked in.
This time around,
And
not
because
so much.
I'm pretty good. You could probably tell from the way that I am late to respond to texts. I'm not very active on Instagram or Twitter. During the week, my phone is on airplane mode. It's in a cupboard. I don't really do anything.
A cupboard.
It's in a cupboard, like the Indian.
A literal cupboard? So you like to just really have it away from any chance that you would be able to acknowledge it?
If I can see it, I'm going for it. I'm going on Instagram.
So you're like trying to spend a lot of time being creative and writing and stuff like that. So you kind of, that's the whole point with that?
It's, I don't want to sound pretentious, like, I can't have my artistic ambitions polluted by social media apps. But if you pick up your phone and you start scrolling Instagram, the effectiveness, your effectiveness in the day immediately declines by like 30% in my mind.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Oh, no, I completely agree.
And also, when the room temperature is 88 degrees Fahrenheit and you're trying to do a podcast, you're 30% less effective too.
It's on 68.
It's brutal.
That's not even like hot. That's not even hot by any. And I agree. It's a hot 68.
It's way more than 68.
I need to invest in some thermals. That's what I realized is that there's no way that I'm going to be able to continue to like exist as a human being unless I get some thermals or something because I'm freezing every moment of the day lately.
You're like a chick, dude.
I know.
We'll get back to your chickness, but
Right.
But what happened is my girlfriend came home. She's like, "Yeah, I guess House Phone said he hates you and was talking a bunch of trash about you and Adam on the Disconnected podcast." And that's when I was like, what happened here? Because from our perspective, we did the podcast with Gracie. Gracie announced that she and somebody who works with No Jumper had allegedly hooked up, and you and I were surprised,
Astonished, fairly, yeah.
but I, even more so than you, I am, like you said, ignorant to the No Jumper drama. So I didn't know if this was something that had come out before. It didn't seem, the way she was so casual about it, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. And therefore I thought it was okay to be like, oh, okay, this is probably coming out. I can crack some jokes, whatever. After it came out, you and I talked over text, and you were hardcore. We can't have this in here. We're shutting this down. We're going to cut every reference out. And you and I agreed on that.
And you were a little worried because you correctly were like, is there going to be a podcast left? Because she talked about that for like a half hour.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And we referenced it so many times in lengths, in chunks varying from like 5 minutes of talking about it to just a couple quick one-line references. So I understand how the editing staff might have had a hard time getting all of it out.
But just back me up that during this, I kept saying, because she kept bringing it up, and I kept saying, we're going to have to edit this out. And then she kept getting angry about it.
Yes. Definitely. As if you were a
It was an
transphobe
odd
for
dynamic.
not letting her air out a sexual encounter.
Right.
And I guess I want to take this time to apologize to the person in question. Can I say? I mean, I guess I could.
Yeah.
House Phone.
Yeah.
Okay. House Phone. I'm sorry, dude. The way it was just casually getting thrown around and me being ignorant about No Jumper drama, I thought maybe it was something that was known or it wasn't a big secret and it wasn't something that I couldn't crack a couple jokes about. And also, I'm new here. I'm just trying to be funny sometimes, and I can say things that are insensitive. And I was just trying to be funny, dude. You've always been super cool to me. I've got nothing but love for you, and I didn't mean to hurt you.
In another version of this timeline, in another simulation, the editors edit it properly.
Yeah.
and then she sees it, realizes that it's been edited to hell, and then what happens? Because I've kind of ran through this in my head a few times. Because in a way, I don't know if it would become as big news if she just said it.
Because she could be lying.
It's almost like the fact that it was on No Jumper or on a No Jumper platform or whatever, that was kind of the reason why it became such big news.
Yeah. And also when it comes out of two cisgendered, 6-foot-tall men's mouths, there's some sinisterness.
Yeah. There's a real thing where people online don't seem to give us any credit for the fact that we intended to have it edited out the entire way.
Do you have anything to say for yourself over there, Michael?
He already talked about it on the podcast.
I saw him. I couldn't find that clip. I saw it pop up, and then I couldn't find it again. What did he say?
Basically just explained how he missed it.
You know, you run it's a tight but also loose ship in here. You're, I mean, clearly you have this thing. It's a well-oiled machine. Content's coming out. You have high standards. But at the same time, you go out there and there's a dude with a sideways hat smoking a J, operating a keyboard.
Yeah.
And there are drawbacks to this sort of work environment. You know, Mike could have been out there doing whippets, trying to get his editing straight while also trying to get high, and that could have resulted in this unfortunate leak.
I'm not sure if he's actually consuming whippets on the job, but
you smoke weed, though. You
probably
smoke.
gonna look into that.
Yeah, come on. Can we test his piss for that? Sid, anybody? Can we keep an eye on this guy?
Let's test his piss and find out how good the weed he's smoking is.
Mike says he's cut back on smoking weed, and Sid can attest. So he's down to about an ounce a day.
If I could redo the whole thing, the main thing that I wish I did is I wish that, because for people who saw the text, I said let's edit it all out. I wish I had said edit it all out, and if you fuck up, I'm gonna fire you. I wish like this is important enough that it really needs you to like 100% confirm. And I was kind of horrified when I was listening to Mike talk about like how he used the search function to find his name, because obviously that's not going to turn up every instance of the name. You know, it was just like too important of a fucking situation and for us to take that kind of risk.
This was Mike. I'm just going to do the control F here. I'm going to search his name here. All right, I suppose the name's been scrubbed from the program. It's ready to go, Adam. You're a douchebag. And also, what's up? You've also encouraged this culture of like, I'm not sure if this is an office or a fashion show. Like I walk out there and I look at Trevor. He's wearing these like trendy 90s glasses. He's wearing this hip hat where it has a Pittsburgh Pirates logo, but it's turned upside down.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he paid like $300 for that. Also, he's wearing like a vintage NASCAR jacket. Is there pressure on these guys to switch up their outfit and spend a lot of money on them all the time?
I would say that there's no pressure on the staff. I don't think anyone gives a fuck. I'm pretty sure Hurley's been wearing the same outfit the whole time he's been working here. But other people, like on camera, I will say that I've seen the other end of that spectrum, because there has been a time or two where there was somebody who maybe was on camera like once or twice, 3 times, and they dress so bad that it kind of like becomes noteworthy.
Yeah.
And my thing is that I feel like with clothing and fashion these days, it's actually pretty hard to dress really objectively bad. When you think about somebody like Yuri,
I don't know. I'm pushing the boundaries of dressing objectively bad.
Okay, but you're wearing designer sneakers, you're wearing jeans that realistically fit pretty well, and you're wearing a black t-shirt and a silly beanie. But like realistically, I feel like you look like a normal human being right now. Yuri comes in here wearing fucking sweatpants with ash all over them, and then a shirt that's wrinkled, doesn't match the pants, and then like some flip-flops. And to me, that is okay. That's acceptable. That fits into his like nerd persona. But like
stoner chic.
There was a dude in here wearing these jean shorts, and it just
you can't do it.
That's the moment I realized, like, oh fuck, like I don't need everybody to dress like really dope, but I can't have this.
No jean shorts.
Jean shorts, sure. Like I feel like there are jean shorts for everyone, really. But there are certain jean shorts that I'm just not going to be able to deal with.
What was the problem with these jean shorts? Could you see the outline of the nutsack?
I think there might have been like an acid wash almost going on them, and it wasn't for me.
And then do you subconsciously, you would be less likely to hire somebody who walked into a No Jumper interview wearing acid wash jorts?
Well, again, like if they're going to be off camera, if they're an editor or something, I really don't If they're an editor, I'd actually kind of prefer that they be dressed in a normal fucking way, because if you're wearing like crazy fashion stuff and you want to be an editor, all that tells me is, oh, you want to be on camera, so you're actually not going to be a good editor.
But that's like all the dudes here. Well, a lot of the dudes here, I guess, double as editors and content guys, and then they also get in front of the camera occasionally.
Yeah,
dudes like Trevor and people. But you go over there and like. They're all dressed flashy.
But it's probably good for our image, right? If the camera pans on over to the editing bay and you see Bossa Nova just looking like a complete and total snack, and then Belt and Kelvin looking like a young NBA youngin, and then Belt has like a face tattoo.
I know.
It's small, but it's there.
And Bossa Nova, I was giving him shit for this earlier. He's got a fro right now, and I don't know if that's okay.
Yo, his hair must grow so fast, because he cut his hair down to like a straight buzz cut very recently. And now it's a full like 2 inches long. That's what you get for being young and healthy. My hair, when I dye my hair blonde and it's like this length, it takes like 4 months, 5 months to fucking grow out. My hair is like, it grows at the pace of a snail.
Yeah, well, it's gone through a lot. It was dead, and then it was revived.
That's definitely probably part of it. But I feel like probably all the hair on my head grows at approximately the same speed. You know why I refuse to do this? I refuse to put a haircut in my schedule every 2 weeks, which I know that if I did that, I have all these things in my schedule that they're just permanent. The gym, the therapist, the dentist, I guess.
Look at you. The gym, the therapist.
Yeah, all the things that you need.
The haircut, though, what's the issue? Because I have issues with the haircut, too.
I just hit the guy up to come cut my hair whenever I think of it. But the problem is like when I went to the AVN, the porn awards, like I was looking bad. Like I had like a long beard. It looked gross. My hair looked nasty. And I'm at the point in my life where like the difference between a haircut and not a haircut for me is like very significant in how I look, which is, I don't like that.
I'll go back and I'll watch old videos of me where I couldn't get myself, because the hair appointment, you got to book it usually for like a week in advance, and it's going to be expensive. And I have to drive out here to the valley to get my hair cut. So there are old videos where I just was so lazy for a couple of months in a row, and it looks like I have a live raccoon on my head, and I don't understand how anybody could watch me or any women could ever love me.
Right, because when I got that gum put in my face, my beard was huge, terrible at the time. No. And then after that, it's like I have all these opportunities. They want me to go on Insider Edition. They want me to go on Logan Paul's podcast, etc. And that's actually how I met Mike, was that day. But, you know, and I'm on there, and my beard is massive. It looks terrible. And I'm like, I'm sure a lot more people probably thought that I deserved to be shot as a result of my facial hair.
Yeah, I mean, you basically look like a vagrant. You with a beard is pushing it, dude.
Even this? Or you mean like a big beard?
Yeah, because you, I mean, with the amount of tattoos you have, you need to give people other signals that you're not going to carjack them. Because right now, like, I wouldn't want you to get too close to me if I was at a traffic light, it is.
And the shaved head was the worst possible thing for me.
Dude, it was terrible. It was horrifying. Now you've got a big scar on your eyebrow. If you add in the beard, dude, and if you add in, you're an intimidating guy. You look like you don't like me and want to hit me.
I don't know if everyone else feels that way. I feel like once you get to know me, or depending on how much masculinity you're exposed to in your day-to-day life, like that tells me a lot about how, like, who I'm talking to. Because like when I talk to like AD, let's say I go to AD's family function or whatever, there's gonna be a bunch of dudes who are like
scary,
you know, physically, and like what they've been exposed to, they're just clearly in a different category of man than me. Whereas like then sometimes I do meet people who are like, oh, you're like a big, tough, strong guy. So that really kind of lets me know where they're at in the hierarchy, how they view me, because I think of myself as like a skinny, waifish little pussy.
You're not. You're a big guy, and you have
nice.
face. It's not resting bitch face with you. It's like curb stomp face.
Resting curb stomp
it's
face.
Edward Norton in American History X face. And that probably makes people at 80s cookouts uncomfortable.
And I had multiple people come up to me in the strip club at 1 a.m. in Vegas and say, like, why are you so mad? Because at that point, I'm like very tired. I've been out all day. I've been up since like 8 a.m. and I'm just standing in the club, sleepy as fuck. I was just smoking, and I'm not really like super excited to be there. And people were like, just like 3 different people that one night at the strip club came up to me and asked me what was wrong.
let's do this, because our best episodes, they always seem to be the ones that are most viewed when there's a bottle of Jergens in the background. Why is that? Whenever we talk about jacking off or sexual stuff.
Wait, we did that multiple times, or that was just that one?
I think whenever there's a
Vaseline.
condom in the background, a dildo, a dick pill, that drives viewership. Right here. Can you throw that to me, Mike? Please.
Just keep it right next to you.
The whole episode, baby, right here. But we should tell each other our best strip club stories, because the strip club is an interesting institution. According to the law, California state law, you can't drink inside of them, you can't touch the dancers, there are all these regulations. But you and I both know that you can have a lot of illicit fun in a strip club. And you can go all the way if you grease the right bouncer and if you find the right dancer.
I've never done that. I've never done much more than just like get a lap dance.
Come on,
And
buddy.
it's been so long since I went to a strip club. Like pretty much the whole time I've been doing no jumper, I haven't been to one.
What about in your shady BMX days?
No, for sure. Back then we used to go to this place called the Library, and it was near Long Beach or Lakewood or something.
Oh, great. I'm sure the girls were beautiful.
They were.
Well, they were.
Well, I don't know. There were some hot ones for sure. Because it's kind of like, it's Southern California. This is like a random ass strip club. So realistically, you could be like a normal chick and then go strip at this strip club and not draw that much attention to yourself, you know? This is like pre-social media damn near too. So
Was that thing going on? Like, for me, the chicks that I went to high school with, I thought they were hot because I had no alternatives. Was that going on for you, that back then you saw girls as hotter than they actually were, but now living in LA, you'd be like, oh, those girls were fucking beat.
Well, that's the whole problem of just being in the porn shit and like having been exposed to so many hot chicks in general. It's just that like when I go to the strip club now, it doesn't have anything close to that same allure. Where like when I would go there when I was young, it was like I was very, sexually frustrated, I guess, to a certain extent. Like all these chicks seem kind of like high value to me. I'd be hyped to fuck any of these girls.
Dude.
And even going to the strip club in Vegas is like probably hotter chicks than where I was at. It's like I don't get that feeling from any of them. And I don't mean to like say that to like talk down on them or anything. I just like, I feel like being in the adult content game, you really get a incredibly a well-tuned eye to how attractive women are and how rare their beauty is, I guess.
Yeah, when you go to the strip club when you're 18, though, or when you get in there,
it just seems incredible. They're older than you.
I went when I was 18 on the dot, and I just gotten a job. This was during the financial crisis of '08. My buddies ran a company where they oversaw a bunch of people who had lawnmowers. All you needed to get this job was a lawnmower. And I put it in my dad's truck, and I would drive it all around Northern California, mowing the lawns of foreclosed houses. I would take some pictures, send it back to my buddy's office. They would send it to Bank of America or Charles Schwab or whoever owned the foreclosed property to make sure that it was in working order and it was being maintained in case they were going to put it back on the market. These guys got filthy rich, and I was making $700 a week, which to me back then, I'm Bill Gates, dude.
Yeah.
So this money's burning a hole in my pocket. What am I going to do? I'm going to go to Centerfolds in Rancho Cordova, California. We show up there. I show up in a Banana Republic suit I just bought for $300. It was off the rack. It didn't even fit. But they're like, oh yeah, we must tailor this. We must order in your size. And I was like, no, I'll take it. I'm going to the strip club tonight. Take my ill-fitting suit and a bottle of Grey Goose that I slammed in the parking lot in there. And I ended up fucking dropping like my entire paycheck on this one chick just because she had like a D cup.
Right.
That's all it took. I saw exposed D breasts, and I was just shoveling money into this girl's hand.
And this is before YouTube. This is just you actually being like this.
I was 18 years old.
Because this sounds like a YouTube Danny Mullen plot.
No, I was
it's good
18.
to know that that's how you were living before YouTube.
That's how I was living, dude.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to do. I wanted to have sex with this girl.
I remember one time back in the day in the strip club, I just like, this girl just came right up to me as soon as I walked in because she had seen my videos or whatever. This is like way at the beginning of No Jumper. And we just lock eyes. And she's telling me how much she likes the channel and everything. I'm like, let me get a lap dance. I dropped like, I don't know, a couple $100. I'm like fingering her in the fucking thing the whole time.
You just said you'd never done anything in a strip club.
I said damn near. No, but then, so we're like making out and like fucking touching each other for like an hour in the strip club. And then we ended up going back to the hotel.
And you put it in.
Yeah.
Was that so early in your video making career that those things meant a lot when a chick knew you from your content? Because I remember
that was like incredibly thrilling to me. Whereas now it would seem very pathetic almost.
Yeah. For me too. I'm trying to think. Like when I used to write short stories and like fiction it was nonfiction, but it was written word prose on the internet.
Right.
And this one girl from Scandinavia with big tits was obsessed with my writing. This was in 2015, and she was the only girl on earth who would have ever fucked me for what I was doing artistically.
Right.
She flew out to San Francisco and blew me, and it was amazing. It would have been more amazing.
She flew out and didn't have sex with you.
Well, so she was there for another purpose. She was there for some like travel student group thing, or some college program. But I had to shit so bad when she was there that night that I couldn't take full advantage of this.
Why
my
didn't you
first
just go
group
take
ever.
a shit?
Because I didn't have that kind of self-confidence.
You were scared to shit in the same room while a woman was in the other room?
I've had issues with women for most of my life.
But like, how small was your apartment?
It was a house.
So you could have realistically done it and she wouldn't have had any idea.
Looking back, there's really no excuse for what I did. Yeah, I could have done it.
No, I had a friend who told me a story like this too back when I was a kid, that like he went to this girl's family dinner and how he just had to shit so bad, and he's just talking about holding it in and how he eventually just had to like get in the car and drive to the fucking gas station to go take a shit. And I'm listening to him just like, why didn't you just excuse yourself and go use the bathroom? He's like, I can't shit in someone's house.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, turn the water on when you go in, lock the door, be ready to flush as soon as it leaves your body. You're fine. Like, how is you leaving in a rush, like, going to be better?
I don't know what it is, because I had a pretty good childhood, but I never talked to my parents about anything sexual. And I think that shame has something to do with shit fear too. Because the first time before my current girlfriend, I had two girlfriends who were much more casual, and I had never taken a shit in front of either of them. Like, I would plan it. I remember I was visiting one in LA once. She was still at UCLA and I had graduated 2 years prior. I came down to visit her for the weekend, and I was making up excuses to go places so I could go take a shit, because I could not shatter the illusion that my asshole was immaculate. And I was like, oh yeah, I got to run down to Starbucks. Oh, I got a business meeting I got to see to in Century City. I'll be back in 30 minutes and go. But my current girlfriend, I remember the day in like 2019 when I finally shit when she was in the house, and my heart was just doon 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 doon. And I figured the best way to go about it is I just went into the bedroom where she was texting. She's like, "Are we gonna go on a hike now? You've been talking about it all morning." And I was like, "Yeah, but before we go, I got to take a shit." I got to take a shit. And then I just backed out of the room.
Was it a relief in that moment when she expressed like no negative emotions and was just like, oh yeah, that's a normal thing for a human being to do?
Well, when I went into the bathroom to take a shit, I half expected to get out of the bathroom and for her to be gone.
You know who had a similar affliction was Lena, because when we first started hanging out, I was in this apartment building in Koreatown, and I was on maybe like the 10th floor or something. Oh, actually, no, I was on a pretty low floor. I remember I was on like the 4th floor. But she would, instead of shitting in the bathroom, which was directly across from my bedroom, she would take the elevator down and go take a shit in the bathroom in the like lobby of the apartment building.
You got to kind of love it when women do that, though.
I was kind of impressed because it took me a few months before I even realized that that's what she was doing.
Yeah,
I thought she was just running off to like get coffee or something.
Chicks, they shit a lot less than us. First of all,
I wonder if she ever bought any like decoy coffees, like bought a coffee just to have a good excuse of why she was down there for 20 minutes.
That's what I was doing. That's what I was doing when I came back to visit my UCLA girlfriend. First of all, I want to say how unglamorous it is when you said you used to live in Koreatown. Koreatown. It's ugly to listen to.
Why? But do you consider that like a decent place to live at this point? Because I thought it was all right back then.
Koreatown sucks.
Yeah, it's like too downtown adjacent.
Yeah.
And basically I had this thing where they asked me when I got it, like the top floor was like $100 or like $200 more. And then the 4th floor was the cheapest one. And I was like, I'll just take the 4th floor. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And then I realized it was because it was directly across from a Denny's. And I was like really low to the ground. So like your view is the Denny's. And this is the type of Denny's in Koreatown where like domestic violence is probably going down on a daily basis. There's literally like a parking lot full of nothing but bums right there.
So let's talk about Koreatown. Number
Fuck
one,
Koreatown.
it smells
Just
like
kidding.
kimchi everywhere. That's number one problem. Number two, I'm just making a Korean joke.
Couple spots.
Number two, let's be real. It's full of bums. It's basically an extension of downtown.
Yeah.
And they have these apartment complexes that look nice, but they're all wood framed. So whatever if somebody's upstairs, just walking gingerly across their living room floor, you can hear it. And if they happen to be a couple degenerate college kids who thought they would save a buck moving to Koreatown and they're partying late at night, you're not getting no fucking sleep.
Yeah.
And also dogs, it's become fashion in Los Angeles for every single person to have at least one dog.
You just gotta, New York is like this, but way worse.
It's fucking awful.
Everyone in downtown Manhattan is just walking around showing off their dog. And they have like $8,000 dogs and all these, the craziest dogs you've ever seen.
Yes. And these dogs won't shut up when they're home.
Right.
And now I am encircled. I feel like Custer, but instead of engines, I got dogs all around me in my apartment complex. Just, which really makes me... Is it loud around your neighborhood?
Not really, but like when I'm walking the dog does this thing with other dogs where they just like face off and scream at each other. I'm completely new to having a dog, so it's just kind of like this weird song and dance with these people that I have nothing to do with except the fact they live kind of near me.
Yeah.
That I have to sort of have this like standoff where we're both like holding off these. It's like you're Dana White at the UFC weigh-in where you're like keeping them away from each other. And
acting tough.
Like, why am I doing this with this 70-year-old Asian woman who doesn't even know who I am?
And she probably is afraid of you to get back to your appearance. But how does that work? What?
I try to smile a lot so that the people in the neighborhood, because I realize that like I'm the only one in the neighborhood that has fucking face tattoos and looks like they could be robbing someone. So I'm glad they've all kind of seen me enough at this point. That
and that's what your dog is about, the whitest dog one could possibly own.
It's so pathetic.
You have a very white dog. It's like I've heard black people rock bling so that people know they're not broke because people have negative connotations with like a guy who's from a certain neighborhood.
Well, I would say that people who come from like poverty and shit in particular.
Yeah, and I feel like
that's a big part of the reason.
I feel like you're so scary looking that you have to do something similar with your Labradoodle.
Or maybe I could just rock. Maybe if I rock pink, maybe I would have like way more of a gay vibe.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you also
I should talk with a fake lisp.
Yeah, and make your wrists all limp too. Just,
hey,
I'm 22. That's how many cocks I sucked this fucking weekend.
I'm not gonna like go into detail to the neighbors about the dick sucking necessarily,
There's
but
so much.
definitely I could do something to sort of soften it. But my girl said the beard makes me look softer.
I have to see you with a beard. Maybe I have. I just can't recall it now. The Labradoodle is a great step. The baby's nice. But what's the deal with that? When you have a dog on a leash, do you let them smell each other? If they start fighting, do you have to yank them away?
Well, I'm not really that experienced with it. I don't really let them get all that close at all. I mean, I don't let them touch each other.
Okay.
I'm scared they're gonna bite them. It's just kind of ugly from my perspective. Hey, let me ask you something. Is there any part of you that wants to like gain muscle? To become like a big strong dude, because you kind of have like the body type that I'm dieting towards of just being like rail thin.
Okay. That was an insulting premise. I want to say first of all, I don't know which way you're moving.
I'm trying to lose weight because I want to be skinny. I'm saying you're skinny, but I'm just saying like in my mind, if I were to get my body fat down to the percentage that I was pretty much happy with, I would probably then want to start like lifting weights and like because you were talking about running actually, so you're kind of on the total opposite side of this, huh?
Well,
you don't want to be big.
I like to think of myself as an athletic build. I like to think of myself as, Greco-Roman wrestler, shot putter.
How often do you lift weights?
Never.
But,
I mean, my chest. I mean, there's some broadness in my shoulders and back.
You have a nice frame. You have broad shoulders. Pause.
You're right, though. I've been getting a little skinny.
You'd make an incredible trans woman.
I'm too tall, and I got too deep of a voice.
Those are all attributes, if you ask me.
And enough estrogen.
Maybe the veins in the arm might hurt.
Being skinny, I wish I could put on 15 to 20 pounds. But the problem with that is, as you know, like however hard you're working right now to diet, I would have to work that hard to hit a calorie mark every single day.
Would you really, though? I could so easily eat like 1,000 calories more per day.
It's more expensive. I also can't cook anything. All I eat is steak now because it's just the easiest. It's the easiest fucking thing to cook.
Pretty high calorie.
I became paleo not because I think it's, or not paleo. I became carnivore not because it's healthy, but because it's quite simply retard proof to throw a steak on a frying pan.
So you're cooking your own steaks over and over throughout the day,
and I'm proud of it.
I feel like that's not something you would really do unless you wanted to put muscle on.
Well, I don't know. I have a really fast metabolism. I would like to put on some weight, but for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I don't want to go in there and get fucking pumped.
You still do that?
Yeah.
You're training for Jason Ellis?
I'm training for Jason Ellis. I mean, if I choke the guy unconscious, I get to suck his limp dick, which is huge, apparently, according to, well, he was outed by our friend Gracie, too. But I do it for cardio because my ego won't let me lose to these guys in the gym. And I'm not fast or athletic or technical, so I just have to have endurance. I have to have the endurance of the Energizer Bunny. And that's my theory, dude. Just be fucking wiry. Just never
I'm glad I now know what you think of your body. You know what I think is pretty clear about me? I have mega gluten intolerance.
Everybody has that.
But so like this weekend, like I went 2 weeks straight. I wanted to see like, because normally every weekend I'll like have some little cheat meals or whatever. I'll just like, eat Popeyes or whatever, like Sunday night.
You said cheat meals. How many cheat meals do you have per weekend?
On an average weekend, maybe like 1 or 2. Like Sunday, I'll just have like a breakfast burrito and then like a burger for like dinner or whatever, which to me, this is like nothing because it's only 2 meals, But the fucking gluten, I'm pretty sure I've shit 3 times this morning and I could definitely see a 4th one taking place. It's just like, I don't know, the bread and the carbs, the gluten, whatever the fuck it is. Like, I just can't handle it anymore. And I also, this is the thing. When I was younger, I used to be able to eat an enormous amount. This weekend, like, I had a breakfast sandwich and then I had like a burger and fries like 8 hours later and I couldn't eat anything else. It's just like I've somehow, like in my old age or something, my stomach is just shrunken and I can't stuff myself anymore.
So what's the goal? You're trying to get like me, and then you're trying to replace the fat with muscle?
I'm trying to get like you for sure so that the band, we can kind of look like symmetrical on stage.
Oh, it's going to be important.
When you're rocking out on the guitar, I guess, and I'm going to be singing into a microphone and also playing a guitar.
Oh, it's super important.
Yeah.
And we got to look like we've at least dabbled in heroin, too.
I don't want to be the fat guy in the band.
You can't do that. You can't be, like, which band has a fat guy?
I don't know.
But Taking Back Sunday had a fat guy in the band.
It must suck being in a band and like secretly just wanting to tell your drummer to lose weight.
You got to be sexy.
Because, yeah, exactly. Like, nobody acknowledges it, but bands are just like sexiness contests, right?
Dude, I was at the Whiskey recently, and it was like it wasn't an open mic, but it was pretty much an open mic. It was, the rock and roll scene is completely dead. So the Whiskey now, which is a famous rock and roll venue, it survives off having local bands sell tickets to their friends and family. And then you stack 5 of those local bands up, and you've sold 200 or 300 tickets.
And you went to one.
I went to one of these, and some of them you're looking, and like the bassist is a 5'5" Asian kid.
Bands hate that thing where they have to sell tickets so much, but it really makes perfect sense. It's like no risk for the venue.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's going to come to the show. Nobody's going to be like, oh, Electric Firefly's playing at the Whiskey on the 29th.
Well,
Let's
I understand
go.
that they don't want to be in charge of selling their own tickets, but if your tickets aren't going to sell themselves, if you're not so popular that people are just going to do this, then what are we even fucking talking about? And with the way the world works now, it's like you selling the tickets yourself on social media probably shouldn't even be that hard, right?
Yeah, that's how the world works.
But why the fuck are you there?
I was there because this kid who was in one of our videos was there. He's at the Guitar Institute. He's a pretty good guitarist, and their band was definitely one of the better ones there. Looking sexy, buddy. Almost there. You've almost reached my build, and then you can start muscling up.
It's got a little.
But there was one band that they sounded like a heavier Linkin Park.
Okay.
And they had one dude who looked like he was in Danzig. What's the lock they had in Danzig where the hair comes?
The Devil's Lock.
The Devil's Lock, which is just one swoop of hair that comes down to the front.
We should definitely get that for a future episode.
We should get Danzig in here, or we should get the Devil's Lock?
That too, but we should get the Devil's Lock. We should like just come in with it.
Nice shirt, by the way, again.
I wore this at the thing. Actually, I wore it when I was with you.
I know.
And I hate that. And when I put this on today, I was like, oh, nobody's going to realize I'm wearing the same shirt.
Transylvanian hunger, dude.
I like to spread my shirts out a lot, which is like, I'm very much tempted to become a Mark Zuckerberg type and just wear the same fucking shirt every day.
To relate to that and the band subject, the fucking band The Strokes, who were like the ultimate
I
just
love them.
hot guys who like all looked perfect. They wore the same outfit every day for like months and months, or an entire album cycle, which is kind of genius.
But do you think that they would get a bunch of the same outfit, or would they just rock like the same leather jacket over and over?
Same shit over and over.
Yeah.
And they said they would change their underwear and socks, but that wasn't confirmed. But that's a great example of a band where their music was completely irrelevant because they looked the part.
But their music was really good. because I've almost never looked at them, and I will sometimes listen to the Strokes.
Yeah.
When I'm like hanging out around the house with the kid.
The Strokes are dope, dude.
It's like an inoffensive, good times in New York City type band.
We're young.
I apologize
we're
for looking
drinking
at my
beer.
phone. Okay, good. My sister, my girl is sending my fucking meal prep.
That is always an issue with you.
Oh, and-
always. It's Monday, and it takes you a while to get in gear. I guess the food's always late.
Like, how do I just walk past it? It's just sitting there in front of my house, right by the door, and I just walk past this big cooler that's just sitting there with my meal prep in it.
There's no
Anyway,
excuse. I mean, it's been happening since we've done this podcast.
When we start this band, though, things are going to be different.
What's happening?
I don't know.
You're going to remember your meal prep?
Starting a band just seems like a fucking nightmarish calling at this point because it just seems like it would be so hard to like really have a diehard fan base.
It's possible. I think it's definitely possible.
They're still out there.
You have to look the same. So I would have to meet you in the middle. I'd have to start getting some tattoos.
I think as long as you don't have any, you definitely shouldn't get any.
I think if we're going to be in a band, we got to all look pretty matchy match.
So
There's got to be some unifying theme
You've
here.
gone like 30 years, maybe 12 of them of which you were legally able to get a tattoo, and you didn't. But you'd do it for this band that realistically probably isn't going to happen.
Yes. Yes, I'm prepared to get a tattoo. Depending on who, speaking of, Black Flag? Oh, yeah.
Just get all of Phil's tattoos.
Henry
That would be
Rollins
super-
represent-
Get
the
Phil's
Descendants?
exact leg tattoos.
Those
done.
are so just band logos. Okay, I'm going to get some band logos.
Milo.
He's got Milo. Milo goes to college. What are some band logos I could get? I could Red Hot Chili Peppers. Got to get that. A lot of credit
Anal
for
cunt.
anal. Oh, and then there goes our
I'm
monetization.
sure Screwdriver probably has some good logos you could get.
Having a band,
Doesn't know it's a racist band. Okay.
Screwdriver.
You never heard of that?
No.
Okay.
Are they still around?
No, the dude died like forever ago.
No.
But that's the only. I think that's like the only racist band that ever like got to the point where someone like me would know their name.
There's a ceiling on racist bands. You're not going to be playing Jimmy Kimmel live as Screwdriver
And
up there.
I'm pretty sure that like they can't. Somebody should check, but I'm pretty sure they can't have their like stuff on YouTube or like streaming services. So you're really shit out of luck.
Hopefully, the lead singer of Screwdriver's Air will put it all on Twitter. It could probably live now on Twitter.
You know, this is what I wonder though. Sometimes is like, you know, growing up, you would think of like racist skinheads.
Yeah.
And now you have a lot of people in the media who are like, you know, far right conservatives, but they don't. There's not like punk rock element to it. Like if Nick Fuentes was like dressed up like a skinhead, wouldn't you find his whole thing like a lot more interesting?
Interesting or offensive?
Probably both.
If Nick Fuentes was dressed up like a skinhead, yeah, I would say it'd be more alarming.
Much more, yeah. Just visually, you're right. Yeah.
Okay, so our band is. What do you? Just want to make sure we're aligned on this. We're going to be racist or non-racist. If we're anti-racist, that'll fucking sell.
Maybe we could play 2 shows in the same night and do a little bit of both.
Sure, that's a great idea. At the Palladium? Or 2 nights, so like one night can be a racist night. We should get, I think it would be great if we got somebody like Flacco on the drums. If you get a black rhythm section, people are taking it seriously.
Well, Flacco being such a Nick Fuentes fan, that seems like he would probably only want to play in the racist version of the
Damn,
band.
dude. All right, so we'll have to book somebody else for the next night. But Flacco is a guy he's a little thicker. And again,
That's what you're looking for in a drummer, though?
No, we need to be skinny, but you put the thick guy behind the drum set so nobody can see him. That's the best thing. The drummer can be fucking butt ugly. Just what's important is the front line or retracting. The front 3.
Were you a big Fall Out Boy fan? Because like the hot one was like the backup singer, and then the regular looking guy was like the singer.
Yeah.
But then everybody kind of like thought, what was his name?
Pete Wentz.
Pete Wentz. Everybody thought of Pete Wentz, right? Because
Yes.
he was like the one who he looks like he's the
Yeah.
lead singer.
And you thought you would picture him singing in your head if you just saw like a snapshot of them in Spin magazine.
Props to them for being cognizant of their hotness enough to like really kind of lean into that.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And all the band photos, he's always at the middle. Like you got to put Pete Wentz in the foreground.
You're
and then
making me think maybe
Fatso.
we should let Leo in the band.
We should.
But I don't know if he's like on brand.
Leo he's got to cut the hair. He's got to lose some weight. But it can
fat
be.
now?
Well, he's a lot thicker than me and you. He's got to have the skinny heroin chic. It's going to be a Sid Vicious thing. We're going to have Leo going like, but somebody
fake
else
it.
will be singing for him.
But who's the band that the singer had like a headpiece, or the drummer had a headpiece? Was this Coheed and Cambria? And the drummer would be singing the whole time while drumming.
Coheed and Cambria had
Did
an
they
actual,
do that though? I can't remember.
Maybe. I mean, they had their singer sings. The guy is like,
Was it Atreyu?
I didn't
There
get
was
into
some
fucking
band
Atreyu.
I saw back in the day who had that, where the drummer had a
Avenged
headpiece.
Sevenfold
That's
had a
gotta take
headpiece.
a lot of like cardio. Playing the drums has to be very exhausting, right?
That's yes. I used to play drums. That just throws off the vibe. I am not getting into a band where the drummer's singing. Also, I don't like it when the bassist is the lead vocalist either. That really throws off the whole rock and roll feng shui.
But isn't the bassist doing like almost nothing in comparison to everybody else in the band?
Exactly.
Like, and I respect it because I know what it would sound like without the bass. But it's just not enough. Like you have to do more.
Yeah.
If you're gonna be a bassist, you have to be like dancing very well or singing or something.
You got to be sexy. It's sort of like a major corporation today. They need a quota of gay people and people of color. A band, you got to have a quota of sexy. And to not have a sexy bassist, which is the easiest job to recruit somebody sexy for, it's like, all right, fucker, can you play a root note G? Great. Can you drop down to C and D? That's our new single, GCD. You can get anybody to do that.
Right.
And it's like having the head of HR at Apple needs to be a black woman. Otherwise, what the fuck are you doing? Like, the lead engineer is going to be an Indian guy named Apu. I'm sorry.
Who
That's
was
going to be
it?
the engineer.
Didn't Apple at one point hire like a black woman who was supposed to be their head of diversity? And then she put out a statement as soon as they hired her saying diversity is diversity of viewpoints, it's diversity of lived experiences, basically this like based take that basically saying I don't give a fuck about if every room has like an equal amount of races or whatever, but she was gone like a couple months. It might not have been Apple, it was some big company though. And it was a black woman having that opinion, and if you watch that trans panel I did, it's fucking hilarious because there's so many like trans sacred cows that just get mowed down in that thing because like I say I just throw it out there. I'm a straight guy. I feel like I'm pretty middle of the road politically and everything. I've looked up what J.K. Rowling has said about trans people. I don't find it offensive in any way. It seems pretty fucking obvious to me. And like, I got so little pushback from everybody at the table. Either were like wholeheartedly agreed, or I was kind of like, yeah, like whatever. It was just like all these things that you would assume are like extremely important to trans people were just kind of like ignored or obliterated.
I was looking at J.K. Rowling's Twitter this weekend. She is, as you taught me last week, a TERF.
Yes, that's what they say.
She's a TERF. She's a woman who, what are her beliefs? I understand it from the sports perspective that they don't want women's gold medals getting taken away and whatever their events is because Chuck became Cynthia and goes into the women's freestyle
I think,
100 meter.
yeah, and that was like another thing that when we were doing that panel that nobody really put forth like a good argument for why biological males should be allowed in women's sports. You know, everybody seemed like they kind of went along with that.
Yeah.
What the fuck was the question?
The question is, what else does J.K. Rowling believe?
I think that her main thing is that she just believes that there is like an inherent nature to being a woman that is not, you know, that if a man has sex change surgery, that they're just not getting at. And that's important for a few reasons, like, you know, that there are women's spaces, like, you know, that there are women's groups, and that, you know, I think some of these people like actually see it happening in their lives where these, you know, like my mom was a librarian, right? And she would always have these book groups, right? And I remember her telling me that she would usually prefer for her like book groups to be all woman, because if there was one guy in the class that he would just love to fucking talk so much that he would just kind of like railroad the conversation in her experience, and that it would just kind of lessen everybody else's enjoyment of it. And as much as I do think that makes my mom a terrible feminist monster for saying something like that, I feel what she's saying, and I do think it's fair for women to want to like form groups for themselves or whatever, and that if you have like, you know, trans people coming in and dominating, that probably sucks.
Yeah, and I was talking to Gracie, like, I mean, Gracie still fucks chicks. So also, if you have a trans woman coming into the women's reading group,
they might fuck you.
They might try to fuck you in the stacks. Whereas if a chick, like my girlfriend was telling me, one of the girls at her work tries to fuck her all the time, but there's a certain lack of threat associated with a chick trying to eat your pussy versus a penis trying to slide up your twat.
Yeah, it's a privilege. The girls are allowed to fucking hit on each other relentlessly.
Yeah, it's fine.
If you meet a random girl and you just say like, "Oh my God, you are hot," Think about how awkward that sounds.
It's tough.
Whereas, like, if you could easily imagine one of the female employees here saying that to another female employee, like, you look amazing today, or you're beautiful, or whatever. You know, I was talking to my sister about this, and she said that it's basically like protocol or like the rules in her professional workplace or whatever, that you can't comment on somebody else's appearance or how they look in any way. And I kind of get that, because there's been a few different times where I've said to somebody who works at No Jumper, like, oh, your hair, like a female employee, like, oh, your hair looks amazing. Or like, oh, those pants are so cool. And in the back of my head, there was like a little tick of like, is that almost over the line? Like, if you're complimenting their pants, is that almost like you saying that they're like hot? Because I don't want to like get anywhere near that line.
Yeah, I heard you compliment one of your female employees on her areolas, because they're protruding over the top of her bra. Was that? I don't know if I should air that out. But hey, Tiff, nice areolas, dude. It's getting.
I'm glad you chose a fake name. There.
It's getting so insane. Yeah, he didn't do that.
There's no Tiff.
I don't know. Like a couple months back, it came out that Stanford had banned a bunch of words. And at the time they got banned, I went and looked at what they were banning. And this will really let you know, like, the direction in which the culture is moving. So because Stanford feeds a lot of people into the tech industry and into Silicon Valley, there are all these examples of things you can't say anymore that are so fucking innocuous that have to do with like computer stuff. So number one, user. A computer, according to Stanford University, shouldn't refer to you as the user, because that has drug connotations, and we don't want to be insensitive to people who are addicted to drugs. In certain,
I never would have thought of that one.
In certain tech circles, there are teams, colored teams, like blue team, yellow team, red team, that have different jobs as far as like cybersecurity, virus detection. Well, guess which color teams are no longer acceptable to be labeled as such?
Yellow?
You can't say yellow team.
I was thinking yellow.
You can't say red team, because that would imply that the teams are made up of Asians and Native Americans.
Asians are red?
Excuse me, Indians.
Right, okay,
Indians.
Okay,
And then also anything where white or black is used to indicate good or evil. And you know, like in Magic the Gathering, the card game, there's white magic and black magic.
Right.
All that sort of thing is completely, you can't say that anymore, according to Stanford University. So the idea of like white hat, black hat, can't do that. White list, black list, can't do that anymore.
Wow.
Even a lot of phrases that we used to think were progressive, like people of color and African American, are not okay anymore. And it says specifically on that list, African American, people of color, both offensive. The alternative that you're supposed to say is black with a capital B, and then like BIOPC or
BIPOC.
BIPOC. That's what you're supposed to say instead of people of color.
But that's insane. Like, because when you say person of color or black, you're talking about black person. That means black, indigenous, or person of color. So like, it includes like a whole bunch of different stuff. So like, black people can't even have their own word. They have to be lumped in with Native Americans and anyone else whose skin is a little darker. That shit is weird.
It's getting complex, dude.
Yeah.
It's getting, and I wonder, because right now it's easy to laugh at it and shit.
The thing I find interesting though is just like somebody like you who's like not exposed to this in any way is just like endlessly fascinated by this.
Aren't you? Isn't it crazy that you can't?
I kind of got over it a while back. It just feels fucking played out, because you know who talks about this stuff is like Donald Trump Jr. Is like, oh, his videos on Rumble are like, oh, now it's racist to say this, and then they're pulling from like the furthest reaches of academia, which I will agree to you that, because that stuff does like trickle down and leak into like normal society, but it's also just like, I don't know, like I feel like these mainstream institutions are their own little islands, and that's why I'm gonna have to make my kid go to community college.
It's getting to the point where, like you said, it is really seeping into our lives, though. Like, social media, obviously, because the people who come from these colleges where they're learning they can't say African American anymore, they can't say people of color anymore, they go on to work at these companies, which in a way dictate our fate, being social media people. Also, did you see what's going on at the NHL? How the NHL has gone so full-blown woke because enough people in their marketing departments, in their corporate side, are graduating from California colleges.
So they've decided that like 3 black NHL players throughout its entire history is not enough?
I'm sure they've decided that too, but mostly it's trans stuff right now. Like, they had a trans exhibition hockey game sanctioned by the NHL, and I saw a little bit of it. Basically, a giant trans woman body checked like a woman into a board, and it was ugly. But the real crazy thing is the official account, when that got criticized, I saw the official NHL account responded to a person saying, trans women or women, non-binary identity is real.
I know, and I sent that text to my family group chat, and man, sometimes I'm just like, oh, I thought everybody was on the same page. And then I realized, like, no, there are people in my family who are too woke to have a sense of humor about this.
Wow. They thought that was completely normal. The NHL would be tweeting that out.
I am not going to throw anybody under the bus, but yeah, sometimes you just, because to me, I would be able to have a laugh at that tweet with Blair White, who is trans.
Yeah.
I would think she would understand that. And that was the best moment in that trans panel, is when I said something about, has the trans identity been like co-opted by lame heterosexual white people? Like, does a 30-year-old white lady need to have she, her in her pronouns in her bio? And everyone there was like, no, it's fucking stupid. What the fuck is wrong with them?
Yeah.
It's like, these are the exact people who they're trying to placate, you know, and they don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, it's everybody. It's like a sideline journalist for ESPN will be tweeting about transphobia and shit like that. It's like, what do you have to do with this? But back to that tweet. The trans thing, the non-binary stuff, I don't really understand, though. The non-binary stuff's a little silly, isn't it?
See, when you're sitting at a fucking table full of all these different trans people who have actually fully decided to live as the opposite gender, they have such a different outlook on it compared to like these people who sort of just want to be able to claim that they're non-binary or claim that they have these fluid pronouns or whatever. Yeah, I think that's the thing, is that does seem like a joke to actual trans people who've actually gone through with the whole thing. And even when we were talking, this is very illuminating to me, when we were talking about the We Spa thing. Yeah. And
We Spa was a spa in Koreatown, bringing it back, where a transgendered woman had,
quote unquote, but basically a man,
had penis out.
Yeah. A guy went there and went into the women's room, penis out, apparently making no effort to identify as a woman in any way. And you kind of, when you think about trans people, you think of them being sort of allergic to like judging and ranking each other based on who looks the most female, right? You'd think that like that's part of their orthodoxy, is that like, you know, you might not have got your fake tits yet, but you're just as much a woman as me, right? But then the way that they talk about it, they're like, no, like this person is not making any attempt to present as a woman. Yeah. And that really is the important thing, because if Blair White were to go into your locker room at the gym, it would create a scene. Every single fucking dude in there would stop and be like, what the fuck is going on? Yeah. So we'd be
psyched at first until the cock came out.
Well, even before that though, like, but she uses the female locker room at the gym, but then she changes in private, like in the fucking restroom or whatever, like, so that she's not walking around, you know, freaking people out or whatever.
Smart.
And she like is like, yeah, that's like the compromise of like me not wanting to be represented as a woman in society and recognized that way, but I also don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. So I'm not going to be walking around with my genitalia hanging out. And yeah, I mean, that's like, just listening to them talk, you just realize how their common sense is so much better than like the average white liberal who's making arguments in their favor.
You're making really good points right now. And the point is essentially that if you're going to be trans, if you want to raise the rainbow flag, you got to go all in. We need some sort of surgery. I'm sure there's the sentiment building amongst gay people and trans people that unless you've been physically assaulted outside a nightclub or had a brick thrown through your window, you don't get to claim LGBTQ+. Because think about it. It's like me finding out that one of my great-great-great-great-grandfathers was black and me getting into Harvard University based on that. Right. That's what just being like, I'm a they-them is. Yeah. It's a cop-out. You've sacrificed nothing, and now you're getting preferential treatment in job interviews.
And it was just so reassuring to realize that somebody like Blair or the Buck Angel dude or whatever, that they think all this shit is a joke too. Yeah. They look at it, they think it's just as ridiculous as we do, because they've actually committed. They actually had, I assume, like hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of surgeries. Yes. Maybe not, but like expensive ass surgeries, you know? It's like they've actually really done a lot to present this way.
Yeah,
and they look
absolutely.
at this dude in the Wii Spot thing as a fucking joke.
Yeah, that guy's a joke.
Yeah.
The 30-year-old who rolls into Hollywood and is like, sometimes I feel a little feminine, so I'm now a he they.
Yeah.
Like, fuck that guy too.
Yeah.
You got to commit, dude. It's at least suck a dick.
Yeah.
Like, sucking a dick is the line in the sand. That's the crossing of the Rubicon.
Ideally, the dick would be covered in sand.
If the dick is covered in sand.
So let's talk about what happened last night, because me and you, I realize you go to bed very fucking early,
Yeah, I
right?
do,
Well,
yeah.
like 9:30.
I was in bed last night by 9 o'clock, like asleep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're texting each other, and we're texting at maybe like 7 or some shit about like, oh, we should watch something so we can talk about it on the show. And
then we got on xhamster.com. And
right.
we were FaceTiming each other while we jerked off.
We searched up Gracie Jane.
Yeah.
And,
Dude.
no, and then we
My asshole still hurts.
so at first we went for the Bernie Madoff show.
Oh, yeah, we were looking at an old Bernie.
I made it 1 episode in. You said you made it 1.5 episodes
yeah,
in.
it's. This was my last text to you last night before I came,
Yeah. Pause.
and it was that he is basically. You said pause. What? Are you going somewhere? I thought.
No.
Oh, okay, I thought you were gonna take a piss, Mr. Small
I
Blind.
might go piss soon. Actually, as long as you're saying that, I'm gonna piss.
So I after making the dust off jokes, I did find this over here, right next to Mike, the man in charge of the edit of last week's podcast.
Man, rest in peace to Aaron Carter.
Yeah,
That was his thing of choice. I don't know. You don't even know about that?
I do. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. That's.
I never tried it.
I've done it once. It's mind-boggling that anybody could get addicted to that.
Can you just pick up the Jergens so that none comes leaking out onto your leg or your jeans? I feel like you got some. So he didn't even lock it before he gave it to you.
100%. Of course not, dude. There's no responsibility or accountability in this office. Bernie Madoff, you and I watched it. It was like
1 episode, though. We didn't even get into like the real scammy part of his life, though.
I sort of did, but you think Bernie Madoff, his name is synonymous with financial ripoffs and Ponzi schemes.
Well, now.
You think that's going to be a home run? You think that's going to be a great fucking documentary? But the problem is, as I text you, he was like Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street, but faithful to his wife. And he didn't do drugs.
Yeah, boring life, huh?
I'm not into it. You lost me. That's not cool. Yeah, what he did is, I finally figured out what a Ponzi scheme is. Ponzi scheme is, have you ever heard those words you say, like that you don't really know what they mean?
Yeah.
Like for a while, the word that I, what was it?
Well, I always felt like I knew what it meant, but now that you're kind of putting me on the spot, I'm not sure that I could put it into words.
A Ponzi scheme?
But
Well-
it's where you get money from people, and then you like convince them that they're getting. What he was doing was he would get money from people and convince them they were getting a return, but they weren't, right? But it's also has to do with like a pyramid scheme where you're sort of like getting people to sign other people up. But is a Ponzi scheme necessarily that?
I think it's different. So don't quote me on this. I only made it an episode and a half in.
Okay.
But a Ponzi scheme, I think, is what he was doing. Was he was just taking everybody's money. He was sending them fake print-ups that were their financial readings. So it's like, yeah, you made a 29% return here on Microsoft last
A
quarter. Good
Ponzi
on you.
scheme is a form of fraud that lures investors and pays profits to early investors with funds from more recent investors.
Yeah, and if somebody hits you up and they're like, hey, I want to cash out, you have plenty of money to do that because you have this, I don't know where all the money was hanging
From
out.
everybody else's money, but as long as not everybody tries to pull their money out,
Then you got a problem.
then it could be good.
And I assume that that's what happened to Mr. Madoff, Esquire.
Even though we
but,
didn't make it to the end
we
of the
didn't-
documentary.
Didn't make it, dude.
At some point, journalists started like poking holes in it and poking around and saying like, this doesn't seem to make sense. I'm pretty sure. I would actually like to finish watching it because I feel like the first episode was boring because you're just finding out about this guy who grew up like a billion fucking years ago, and his dad lost money in the stock market. His dad was a failure overall.
Yeah.
So it became extremely important to him from a young age to be successful.
Yeah.
And he had this one situation early in life where he got like $35,000 worth of money from like 20 different people, which is a lot of money at the time. He's investing it, and then the whole market collapses. And so instead of going to all those people one by one and saying, hey, I lost your $1,000, which might have been their life savings at that point, he says, hey, Dad, can I get $35,000? He gives it to him, and then he pays all the people back. So at that point, he's out money, He's lied to the people, but everybody's looking at him as if he's this very savvy investor because he was able to survive this massive fall in the market.
Even though all he really did was go to his stepfather, or his not stepfather, his father-in-law, and be like, "Hey, cut me a check. I really messed up."
Yeah,
he was basically, he had to be successful because he was banging this chick, and her dad was a successful accountant.
Right.
Which is, I kind of like the logic to that. Like, kind of go out of your league, and then you got to level up to like please your girlfriend's parents. There's a nice logic to that. Actually.
I know a lot of people though who like I know a guy who like opened a store and like had like a whole business and stuff, and everybody's congratulating him and acting like he's doing so great for himself. But I know the truth. I know that his girl's dad let him borrow like $50,000 or whatever to start this business. And it's like, by leveraging that, he was able to sort of present to everybody as if he was experiencing this success. And, that was a couple of years ago, and the business obviously didn't work out, and he shut it down, and it wasn't his own money that he lost. But it was kind of weird for me to be viewing that and seeing people congratulate him and knowing, like, this has nothing, there's no legs for this to stand on. He's not bringing in any money. There's no reason for you to think that this business is going to make money ever. And if it does, it's not his.
Dude, the balls to go to your girlfriend or wife's dad
I know, right?
and be like, "Hey, Chuck, hey, football, huh?
Yeah.
Wow, what's the score in the game? Oh, great. So listen, I need $50,000 to open a candle shop."
Right. But the thing about it is that a lot of people who haven't done anything in their lives just go around talking to everybody about all their big ideas. And I feel like I was kind of like that before I actually ended up kind of accomplishing some shit. And now it's like when I talk to random people, I don't want to talk to them about, like, when the Uber driver cracks off a conversation and says, "So what do you do? What kind of line of work you in?" or whatever, I just minimize it. Because I don't want to have to fucking talk about all these famous people I know. I don't want to talk about these trips I've been on. I don't want to talk about all this cool shit. It's kind of like gross. And what do I gain from telling this person about it, et cetera? But when you have nothing, you're just walking around. It's just you and your narrative. It's just you and your motivation. And I've known a lot of people in my life who've ended up in really advantageous positions because they're just sort of keeping this monologue going and telling people what they want to do. And then at some point, somebody's going to have some money that they want to invest, and they'll probably get in bed with you. And it's got to be it's a pretty good tactic, honestly. If you have nothing going on, that's really the best thing you can do is try to just convince people with money to believe in you.
And if you're going to do that, though, don't be an Uber driver. Because is there anything more cliche than an Uber driver trying to explain why they're an Uber driver, but being like, I just do this on the weekends to make a little bit extra cash. I'm actually a record producer.
Right.
I actually produced the newest Drake album. I'm sure Sydney sitting behind the console right now. My girlfriend reports on this all the time that Uber drivers will try to pick her up, but of course they have to explain away their current job because no girl, you can get laid as an Uber driver.
We probably have a lot of Uber drivers out there, right? But you can only fuck other Uber drivers.
That's how it should be. I want to make sure the gene pool doesn't spill over into everyday society.
Look, I've been there. I haven't worked a lot in my life. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I did security in 2008 at a bar for a couple of days during South by Southwest.
A couple days? Nice.
And, no, literally like 2 days worth of security. For
salt of the earth.
Yeah, and I was getting like $11 an hour, and it was rough. But anyway, I was explaining away. Because I'm meeting girls. And I'm having to tell them right away, like, I got this brand, this whole thing going on, whatever.
Dude, I do that too because I was a security guard in San Francisco. In San Francisco, all the chicks that would come into my bar were girls who worked at Google, who worked at Facebook. And they all made $180,000 a year, these super hot chicks. And I'm standing there checking their IDs. Making $28 an hour, which was pretty good. I was making 28
as a door guy.
Yeah,
Holy
but
shit.
I only had 2 shifts a week, so it wasn't enough.
This wasn't that long ago either. So
it wasn't. The thing is, though, like if you are in that position, like chicks will, if you're just fucking honest about it, and the girls don't smell bullshit on you, you can make it work. I got way more fucking ass when I was dead broke working as a busboy or a doorman than I probably could get now.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. You know how that goes. When you're all it takes to get pussy is motivation.
Right.
If you're motivated to get pussy, you get yourself into this mindset where if all you're doing every day is getting pussy, it's like going to the gym and doing squats or bench press. The muscle develops.
Yeah.
The resistance makes you stronger. Pretty soon, if you just chase pussy for a year straight, you will be so immune to rejection that women will just smell the I don't give a fuck on you and want your cock paradoxically.
Because a lot of guys out there think that the key to getting ass is to become high value, to get clout, followers, money, etc. But in reality, I think like the key to, you know, having relationships with women is to just meet them.
Yeah.
To just like be around women. I remember I had this really depressing experience where I had been playing poker for a couple of years. I'm like fresh out of college, like, you know, I'm like 21, 22, and I had been injured a bunch, right? So I'm just literally for like 2-3 years, I'm in my room playing poker, making pretty good money. And this is the time period where I started the website that actually like led to me having like an enjoyable life, right? But at this time, I'm just like in the house like 8 hours a day, and or like 10 hours a day
in
playing
your parents'
poker.
house?
No, living in Queens in like a bum ass apartment. And then I had a friend, and he worked at Urban Outfitters, and I went and saw him one time, and I just realized like in that moment, like, you have no fucking money. This is the worst job ever, but you are meeting so many girls and having so many sick experiences, even beyond just the girl thing of like just randomly getting invited to parties and really being a part of like the nightlife in New York and stuff. Meanwhile, I had just spent like 2 years doing nothing, just trapped fucking trying to learn how to play this game better. And it made me realize in that moment like how much I was kind of missing out on by having this fucking boring ass life. Yeah.
Definitely short term, you're better off working at Urban Outfitters versus being an investment banker who works 180 hours. That's probably too many hours to fit into. But if you're in an office all day, it doesn't matter how much money you're making. The difference is that for having a girlfriend, that's going to be tough to pull off when you're wiping down tables at Olive Garden.
But the thing is, too, is you get later into your life and all of a sudden you want the stability and you want something that's really kind of boring. Because, like, when I look back at those days, all that shit seems appealing, like just being in the house, being able to work on this game or whatever, versus going out and partying and stuff. I have all the opportunities in the world to do that now, and I don't find it attractive at all.
Yeah, you want to build something now.
Yeah.
That shift happens in your 30s. I remember, just sort of on the subject, when I lived in San Francisco and I was working those minimum wage jobs, I knew I could go out and get pussy at a bar. I could get a cute enough haircut. I could go buy the newest spring fashion at Urban Outfitters, perhaps. I could go out and I could look good enough in a loud bar. I could keep my deficiencies, my financial deficiencies, secret for a night. That was no problem. So one night stands I was good at. If the girl and I hung out again, two things would happen. One, we would have to get shit-faced. The date would have to be predicated on alcohol. But number two, I would pray that there was something wrong with her personality. I needed some sort of defect, because if the girl was perfect, if she had a great personality and she was funny and we were getting along, I would panic because I knew that I was in no position in my life that any girl would like me. So if I liked her a lot, it would be tragic because I knew she wouldn't like me and I would have to end the relationship.
But do you think that you were being unnecessarily, considerate of that? Because I feel like throughout my life, I've known tons of hot chicks who had like some skater boyfriend or some YouTuber boyfriend who was like really not doing that well, but they liked him enough that they were, willing to tough it out. I feel like it's not the end of the road if you're a guy. But you might have really been that pathetic. I don't know.
I was pretty pathetic. And this fucking 7-deuce offsuit penis, dude.
But I always had a lot of confidence, even when realistically I wasn't doing that good for myself, because I felt like I was still doing way better than almost everybody else that I knew.
Maybe it was because I was in San Francisco and other people's idea of success was so different from the path I was moving towards. And yeah, dude, I don't think these tech chicks would have gone for it, what I was doing. The chicks who have the loser, skater, stoner boyfriends, a lot of times I feel like they're sort of alternative chicks themselves. I feel like maybe they're in social media. They're strippers or they're like in porn or something. They live an alternative lifestyle. Whereas the chick who was educated at an Ivy League school, now who works in Manhattan, she's looking for a certain type of guy. Yeah.
By the time women get to their like late 20s, that stuff really starts to become important. And because that was something I remember from when I was even like 18, 19, is that, I felt like I was starting to have my shit together or whatever, but I was losing out on chicks to just dudes who were in bands who were like, wore cooler pants than me, or like their haircut was cooler or whatever.
Mike, can you write that down? For a hypothetical band, we need cool pants.
Cool
okay?
pants.
Tattoos, cool pants.
But do we want to go like really tight pants, or do we want to buy a bunch of like really baggy, like weird, patchy jeans?
Like Sydney's wearing right now? Sydney's wearing these like pajamas that have various patches and dragons on them.
Where'd you find those?
Urban Outfitters. There we go. It all comes back to you fucking UO. That's something that happened recently. I guess skinny jeans are completely out. And now everybody's dressed like Rob Dyrdek in an Alien Workshop video. Everybody's out there with those baggy pants.
I was pushing baggy pants hard, but now that I'm like losing weight, I'm like, well, I'm not trying to fucking wear baggy ass jeans that made me look exactly the same as I looked before.
Yeah, and chicks can't say you're bulge.
Let's talk about our jeans though. Like, do you feel like these fit adequately? Is this an okay fit? I don't feel like they're too tight.
You and I have basically the same fit going on.
Right.
It's
the same fit of jeans.
Yeah. You and I could swap jeans. Those would be a little baggy on me. These would be a little tight on you.
What are those, 34s?
32s.
I think mine are 36s, so yeah.
But
they fit our particular legs.
Yeah.
About the same.
And it's also good for us, too, for guys who occasionally like to crack a funny, like to make a few jokes.
Crack a funny.
It's like we're not trying too hard right now, you and I. Like, we got some pants. They're intact. They fit acceptably. Like, if Bossa Nova came in here right now looking like a 16-year-old girl, because he dresses, and he's about as hairy as a 16-year-old girl, which is not at all. He's got a lot in common with 16-year-old girls.
You've examined his hair?
I bet if you spread his legs and looked at his asshole and nuts, it would be just without a follicle.
I bet it would be face-tuned. But, oh, wow. I saw a picture of a girl showing her asshole on the plane the other day. It's actually a rapper's ex-girlfriend. And it looked, you want to see it?
Yeah.
It actually looked great.
Okay.
Really nice-looking butthole. But at the same time, it was just so unbelievably obvious to me that she had really put in work face-tuning her ass cheeks and asshole.
Okay,
it's so much darker than the rest of the photo.
So Adam showed me a picture. A girl she's on a commercial flight, and she had somebody sitting next to her take a picture of her fucking pussy and asshole. Sometimes on Southwest flights.
And she said she got banned from the airline for that, which I don't know if she's just saying that or not.
That's
how zoomed in are you right now?
I'm pretty
really
zoomed in.
using both your fingers.
So there's a little bit of discoloration, but
I feel like you're texting this to my mom right now.
That used to be
what are you doing?
I'm just looking at it. I swear I'm just looking at the asshole.
Still staring at it.
That used to be the reason my mom's name in my phone is saved as her name is because in high school it used to be a thing where you'd grab people's phones and just say fucked up shit to their moms.
Yeah,
that used to be a thing. And so my first instinct was to text that to your mother. So I'm glad you
don't know my mom's name, and I'm glad I don't have her saved her mom. But back in the day, one of my friends, shout out Catfish, maybe you'll meet him one day, he grabbed my phone and just Googled big black penises.
Yeah.
And then went on my Facebook and posted it. And I was locked out of Facebook for like 24 hours.
It's a light sentence.
At the time, Facebook was really like, whatever. You could do anything on there, right? So it wasn't that big a deal. But when I think about that now, can you imagine if one of your friends did that and got your fucking Instagram deleted over it?
Isn't that insane? That
I might commit a murder.
I remember in 2017, I picked up my friend's phone and it had Face ID, and I was trying to change the song because we were pre-gaming, and I wanted to put on like an Oasis to it or something. And I was like, "What? Why does it need to see my face? Why is it scan? What's going on here?" My phone was completely unlocked, and locking technology on a phone was so foreign to me because I had nothing you could steal or take, nothing of value, and I used to go on my friends' Facebooks all the time. And it started out, of course, with the boneheaded, like, oh, I'm gay, let's fuck, post.
We used to go onto our friends' MySpaces and change it to gay or bi or whatever.
Yeah, that's subtle.
Take them like weeks to notice.
Yeah, that's the kind of shit we would do. And then eventually it would get more and more artful.
That's crazy that you don't have to choose a sexual orientation on social networks anymore. Why did you have to do that on MySpace?
They were progressive. They were ahead of their time.
And you could be like in a relationship. It's complicated. All those options on MySpace. That was fun.
The body positivity. There was more to love. Remember when you could select more to love?
Yeah.
It was like athletic build, slim, slender, more to love, couple extra pounds.
So when I would be searching for girls on MySpace, I would be
good old days.
I'd be searching like a 4-mile radius, and I would specifically check I do not want more to love. I do not want any of these other things.
Dude, those were... I'm glad MySpace got deleted because, I mean, the Me Too jeopardy I would be in. Not that I said anything that bad, but I mean, there were some scummy messages.
Think about that technology, though. Being like you're opted in when you sign up for MySpace, but you're able to go into the search and you're able to put in your zip code and look at every woman within a certain radius.
Yeah.
I mean, this just feels like something that if this existed on Instagram or Facebook, that it would be extremely problematic for them and would probably enable a lot of stalking and harassment and all kinds of wild shit, right?
I mean, geotags are pretty sketchy. Like a chick does a sexy pose on the Santa Monica Pier, and anybody who has Instagram can see where she is when she posts that picture.
Yeah.
Sort of the same thing going on.
Yeah, but like there's something about the fact of being able to view everyone who lives right near you. Like I actually think it's great. Like, wouldn't you love to be able to look at Instagram right now and see all the profiles of all the women who are within a half a mile of here?
They would all be named Lupe if we stood by my house because I live in a very Mexican neighborhood.
Right.
It wouldn't be too. But that is MySpace. Kids don't know. Like this jack off Mike certainly doesn't know that when MySpace came out, that was like the second inventing of fire because we are men with these, we just are loaded with testosterone and jizz and the desire to fuck. And for all of human civilization, we could only act on what was directly in front of us. That was the only way we could meet women. And then this jerk off Tom comes around and he's like, hey, if you see a girl with a nice set of boobies, you can just say like, oh, I want to fuck your face. Send.
But he just made it easy enough that everybody else could figure it out because I remember in like 1998, I had a friend who got on AOL chat rooms like way before everybody else. He had AOL, like all my friends at least, and he was fucking women off of like random old ladies.
Oh, that guy's
off
probably
of
so
AOL.
fucked up now.
Oh yeah, he's actually one of the worst people I've ever met in my life for sure. But he would be fucking old ladies on there, and not even just old ladies, but like whoever. Like I remember one summer him telling me that he fucked 40, 50 different women, like off of AOL's chat rooms. And then like MySpace all of a sudden just made this so much easier.
Oh, yeah.
And like I had a friend who refused to get MySpace, basically just thought it was fucking stupid because this is 2003 and he was just like against it. And so we made a fake profile of him. And we started to go onto the search feature and just DMing tons of girls. And eventually some of them were actually fucking with him. And that's when he actually became a MySpace user, is because we already had all these leads queued up for him. And this really gives you a window into how much time we had at our disposal at that time.
We did the same thing, dude. And I forget if I've told the story on here, but we used to make, and that was another thing, is now if somebody makes a fake image or a fake Instagram account for you or I, it's going to last for a couple of days. But back then, the kids at our high school, nothing was stopping us from making fake accounts and photoshopping the pictures. Like there was this one dude, John, that my buddy, the story was this kid, John, that went to our high school. He messaged a chick, or he commented on a girl's picture that my buddy Kevin liked. It was this chick at a beach. And he commented, this kid, John, like, it would be so much better if I were there with you, LOL. And my buddy Kevin, who had a crush on this chick, like Cynthia or whatever, freaked the fuck out and immediately made a fake account for this guy. And for the next 2 years, it was our obsession. Like, we would just not Photoshop, we'd go on Microsoft Paint and cut out images of this guy, John, and like put them into pictures of like the popular girls at the school, and the caption would be like, 3 bitches I fucked this weekend, ROFL, laughing my ass off. And we would start comment, like a girl with this boyfriend who was like a linebacker on the football team. It would be a picture of her and him together at prom, and John would saunter in. It was actually me and my buddy Kevin. That guy looks like a pussy. I'd knock that bitch out in one hit. And pretty soon, the actual physical John, the real guy, was getting like cornered at Denny's. People at parties were breaking bottles over his head because we were running amok on this MySpace profile that we'd created, and there was nothing he could do about it. There was no recourse at all.
Wow. Yeah. No, there was a lot of shit like that. And you just reminded me of a bad one that I had. You want to know how I got my first MySpace deleted?
Yeah.
So I had one, and then I had to get another one. The reason why was because somebody turned me on to this little scheme that was going on at the time where there was a link. You send the link to somebody. It looks like it's going to be a MySpace link, but then it tells you to log in. Now, at the time, MySpace was like kind of buggy and like full of shit. You probably had to log in all the time. You're already used to, it's not like if you have Facebook on your phone, you never have to fucking log in again, right? But so I'm on it. I have this link that basically just steals your username and password. And I'm sending it to all the chicks I know, and they're just fucking just filling out the information. And then I'm just like going and just reading their messages on MySpace, which seems fucking crazy now. And it wasn't like I like was doing it in a creepy way. It was just like I realized I could do this. So I was just doing it and just like reading a lot of people's fucking secrets and shit. And then I had the bright idea to put it as a MySpace bulletin. And that's what got my account deleted, because obviously MySpace is like looking for these links that they've flagged as. And at the time, the idea of even getting your account deleted, I had never even heard of it. Like I didn't know anybody else who had. And it wasn't like I got my account deleted. It was just frozen forever. So people could just, I probably missed so many messages that got sent to that account because I had to make another one. But yeah, that was I don't know.
Dude, that's like in The Dark Knight Rises, or the one with the Joker, the Batman, where Morgan Freeman has that machine where you can spy on everybody in the city.
Yeah.
That's that sort of power. That's Mel Gibson in What Women Want, that movie where you can hear girls' internal monologue. That'd be so interesting.
I remember being super let down because because I thought it was going to be so good, but then I realized that most of the good conversations moved to like text or phone before they really got good.
Yeah.
Like I would see a lot of dudes hitting on girls, but not a lot of them like really getting into it back with them. And then sometimes it would be like they'd be hitting it off, and then it would just move to the phone. So I never really like found anything that good. And realistically, I was only doing this for like a couple of days before I got banned.
You know, no nuggets, nothing juicy, nothing you learned about how women see guys DMing them or hitting them up online.
Not that I remember at this point.
Because it's pretty. Women, they're fascinating creatures. I feel like they're way more trustworthy than guys.
Yeah.
I feel like that's one thing.
Or at least maybe they used to be. I feel like the internet is kind of beating that out of them.
You think Instagram is like the death knell of all monogamous relationships?
I mean, in order to be an Instagram user and in order to like meet up with people to potentially have relationships from Instagram, you have to really have some media literacy about you. You know, you're going to have to really be able to sort out whether this is a real person. Maybe you're going to have to FaceTime them, you know, like a girl who's down to just meet up with some random guy off Instagram without doing like really assuring that this is who they say they are. It's going to be tough, you know? And I remember, and the bigger the city you grow up in, the more difficult that is. I remember when I moved to New York, I just realized like all these girls are infinitely tougher than the chicks that I grew up around, because in New Hampshire, you can kind of afford to just let your kids, you know, go walk around the block and like maybe go to the mall or whatever. There's all kinds of things that you could do that wouldn't be that big a deal. But then meanwhile, in New York City, it's like every parent who's even a halfway decent parent is feeling like their kid might be abducted on any given day. And so they have to be super on top of them.
I'm reading a book right now about, you know, Bret Easton Ellis?
No.
American Psycho?
No.
You don't know American Psycho? Movie, book?
With, what's his name? Christian Bale?
Christian Bale,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
I'm reading a book by that author right now. He's one of my favorites. And he's a gay dude who lives in LA, but he's like super anti-woke, anti-PC. Well, his new book is about him growing up in LA, and it's semi-autobiographical because he did grow up around here. And that's what it's about. It's about these high school kids that are living in empty Bel Air mansions because their parents work until 11 p.m. at night. And around page 30, there was just a hardcore gay sex scene without any warning. I'm reading about two 16-year-old boys fucking each other in the ass in a swimming pool.
Some people will call that child porn.
I might be guilty of consuming child porn this weekend.
I guess I would have to read it.
I mean, ask
Like
me what I did this weekend.
how in depth was it?
Incredibly in depth. Like, ask me what I did this weekend.
What'd you do?
Read child porn.
Right.
That's basically what I did. Like, it's written by a guy who's, at what point is that child porn? Because it's a dude in his 60s now, I think Bret Easton Ellis, writing about his younger self, definitely underage. He's 16 or 17 in this scene, and he's going over to this stoner kid's house who he thinks might be gay, but he's not sure, and he yanks the kid's swimsuit down, sucks his dick, and then fucks him in the ass, and it's written in acute detail, and it's about two 16-year-olds. But because this guy's like published books in the past, he has a history of writing literature, I guess that makes it art and therefore not porn. But if I found this on Reddit or something, it would probably be child porn.
Yeah, it's all context.
In context.
I mean, if there's it's not really child porn unless there's photos. They don't like to call it child porn anyway either now.
Is that demeaning to child porn addicts? Like, what is that?
No, it's demeaning to pornography. Because pornography is created consensually, right? If it's not, then it's not porn.
So
like if you kidnap somebody and lock them in your house and torture them sexually on camera, that's not porn, right? That's like torture footage.
As a representative of the porn industry, do you get like triggered when people say child porn?
No, I don't care because I'm still working at not saying it anymore. But what they call it now is, I think, child sexual materials or something like that. There's another word in there.
I think that's more erotic anyway. I like that.
It's just weird. So they're really going to think you're a pedophile.
Who's they?
Them behind the camera.
Dude, I read my girlfriend a passage of this book. I couldn't fucking believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Bret Easton Ellis. He's a mainstream author, but he's just like fucking lots of underage boys in this book.
Wait, but you're convinced that this story didn't actually happen, or you think he was admitting to it?
No, well, he in the story, it was about when he was in high school.
Okay.
So they're both underage.
Oh, all right.
But I'm still reading materials, fictional materials, based on real events about two 16-year-old boys fucking each other up.
Do you ever
the
have
ass.
those conversations where you're talking about some sexual experience that you had in high school?
Yeah.
And like you're describing it, but you don't want to like seem too hyped on it because you're talking about like your 15-year-old self?
I've never pumped the brakes because I thought I was telling a child porn story. No.
I have, it's just like a certain way where I don't think you can really talk about it. Like if I was talking about some threesome I had last week,
Yeah.
I could be talking about how amazing it is.
Yeah.
But I feel like I got to be a little reserved when I'm talking about how much I was enjoying myself getting jerked off in 10th grade.
Yeah, dude. Cindy Dickerson, after 5th period, gave me a fucking hand job, and I was kissing her, and her braces were cutting my lip, and I was feeling her underdeveloped titties, and I was
hated
rock hard.
It's terrible.
Yeah, I fucking know.
Can we finish this with Star Wars?
Yes.
This is what we
talk about.
This
Star
is what we
Wars,
turned to after we both unanimously agreed that we didn't care about Bernie Madoff.
We're gonna move on to something else we don't care about.
Star Wars. Man, you watched all of them.
I realized when I watched all of them, though, that they are pretty trashy.
So I watched what was it called? A New Hope.
Yeah,
the
the first
original one, which was not called A New Hope when it came out. It was just called Star Wars, right?
I think it was called A New Hope.
I think they added
What do
A
you
New
know,
Hope
dude?
later on.
What are you a Star Wars fan fiction?
No, they did because they didn't realize it was even going to become a series.
But it was they'd already established that the prophecy about what was going to save the Force. You're just
Well, they
shaking your head like I'm wrong.
retroactively added the name that made sense.
All right,
but
it was
when
Star
it came
Wars.
out, I'm pretty sure it didn't have the New Hope because I had to look it up because when you go to Disney Plus and you're looking at the movies, they're in the order that chronologically in the actual timeline of Star Wars they came out. So
Yeah.
you have to skip past like 3 or 4 of them to get to the first one that you're supposed to watch. I had to look it up on my phone to make sure that I was going to watch in the right order because I remember trying to watch Star Wars probably when I was in 5th grade and thought it was fucking boring and I turned it off. And I don't think I've tried since. And I have this thing in my head where it's like I watch so much niche content on the internet that I feel is probably not really that beneficial to me because it's like once you've watched 800 different poker stream videos, it's just like this might be helping me understand the game better, but it's not really helping my ability to have conversations on camera. Whereas if I watch any random movie and then I'm doing a podcast and the person I'm talking to happens to have seen the movie too, we might have a 20-minute conversation about the movie. Now, granted, that's a little limiting for the audience because the audience, we're going to have to do a good job explaining it. And a lot of times if you have conversations about movies that you've both seen and the audience hasn't seen it, it's like they don't give a fuck. But in general, like increasing your pop culture awareness is probably a good thing as a podcast. Just so a lot of times I'm trying to think more in that direction. Like instead of watching the 800th poker stream video, let's watch something that everybody will know about. So I put on Star Wars, and even when I got tempted to turn it off, I stuck through it and I watched it, and I can now say it was stupid and I hated it, and I don't think I'm gonna watch the rest of them, even though I would like to, but it was really hard for me to sit through.
Yeah.
It was boring.
Yeah, what do you think about that, Mikey boy, Mr. I know definitively what the title of the first Star Wars is?
This is my main thing. Like there's this end scene in A New Hope where they all suit up in these little fighter planes, right? And they they put on these orange jumpsuits. Which, if you go back to like old school movie making, this is how you like convince the audience that they were now dealing with a new scene. Is like, oh, now we have orange shirts, and so they take off and they have to destroy the Death Star or whatever. And I'm watching it, and without even consciously trying, I'm pulling up my phone and I'm looking at shit on my phone and stuff because it's just like for 15 minutes, 20 minutes of the movie, there's no narrative being advanced. It's just special effects. They're flying the plane. It's just, oh, look at that. Look what happened. That thing blew up and now this blew up. And it's just, there's like nothing being added to the storyline during that time period. And I literally like pick up my phone and look at it for 15 minutes and then put it down. And then the scene ends and I missed nothing because I already knew how it was going to end. And the narrative didn't get pushed at all. And I don't know. I've always had such a hard time watching movies that I feel like are getting by on special effects, which when you read about Star Wars and why it was so popular, it's largely because of the special effects, which were amazing. And I know that they like remade it a lot of times over the years, but I don't know, man.
It's the original Star Wars. I loved them when I was a kid because that imaginative environment was so new to me. And I think that's why it was so appealing early on, because that was so new. And maybe the original Star Wars trilogy is more important than it is good. Sort of like if you listen to a Bill Cosby or a Lenny Bruce record from the 50s and 60s, you don't really enjoy it. You can appreciate the craft that went into it and that it was the first of its kind doing these things, but you don't love it like you would love a Dave Chappelle or Louis C.K. set from today.
Because it's not topical. It's jokes that now seem very, very redundant or dated. Yeah.
Yeah, or it's referencing some sort of protest or strike that's going on. But also, George Lucas is from Modesto. And what are we expecting from a guy who wrote a movie who's from Modesto?
I don't know.
Do you know where Modesto is?
Not enough to judge.
Modesto is, I'm trying to think how I would describe it to a West Coaster. It is, it is a bumfuck farm town, which I'm sure has a lot of meth and gas station robberies.
Well, I'm sure other people have accomplished things from these places, right?
There's actually a startlingly high amount of important people that come from Modesto. Can you pull a list up? Jeremy Renner, a bunch of NFL players.
Who almost died recently.
Did he?
Yeah, he was involved in a terrible, what was this, a snowmobiling accident? Skiing accident? Yeah.
I bet he was that queer. Jeremy, I'm very glad you're still with us, buddy. He's some fucking hick from Modesto. I actually read recently a little magazine on the making of the first Star Wars, and everybody involved with it was super dismissive as they were doing it because he basically he had no clout yet in the industry. He'd made American Graffiti. You know that movie? It's about a bunch of kids that are trying to get pussy. They race cars.
I heard about it, but no.
So he made that, and it was pretty well received. So he had a little bit of juice, but not much. So basically, all like his director of photography, all the people who were doing the lighting and sound, they're like, hey, who is this fucking kid making this movie? Like, they kept calling the Wookiee the dog. They're like, yeah, let's get the dog thing over here and try that shot again. The guy, Ben, Obi-Wan Kenobi, hated it. He thought the dialogue was terrible. He thought George Lucas was a hick. He wanted nothing to do with the project.
It was like Pinkerton.
Did the people who produced Pinkerton hate it?
No, but well, yeah, eventually because the fans hated it so much.
Mm-hmm. The band hated it for a while too.
They wouldn't play it for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, that's how Ben Kenobi was like Rivers Cuomo.
But it's actually totally unlike that because Pinkerton was like generally unpopular when it came out, whereas Star Wars was this gigantic success when it came out.
Immediately.
My thing is, yeah, I don't know. It was just, for me, it was tough to get through. It felt like, even just the first scene, it's like, okay, so there's this empire and then there's this rebel alliance or whatever. And the way that they're doing battle in space is that somehow one ship connects to another ship and all these stormtroopers run in with these ray guns that shoot these red beams. Never at any point in any of this do you see what the red beams do to anyone. Mm-hmm. They just like bounce around, or if they hit you, I guess it's just like a push or something. Mm-hmm. Like nothing happens. Mm-hmm. And I just refuse to accept that this is how intergalactic space warfare would take place, is that people would be raiding each other's spaceships. It's like, no, we know how this plays out. You're going to blow each other up. You're not going to go get on there and try to invade and see what's going on.
Yeah, one ship fucks the other ship. Basically. And then a bunch of extras run at each other and shoot little pew-pews.
But then R2-D2 and the other guy just hop into this little pod and they take off, and for some reason they're in the desert.
Very convenient, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I remember the second one. I watched.
But they just know how to do that.
Yeah, they got it all. It's all figured out.
I know I'm not supposed to be taking all this like literally, but it left a lot to be desired for me. But they're saying The Empire Strikes Back is a lot better, so I'm kind of wondering if I should do that. But also, you should watch Kids, because I would love to talk about that movie on here.
Is that the skate movie?
It's not the usual kind of movie about kids that you watch.
This isn't children's.
It is skate adjacent. Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
It's what's the term? I want to make sure I never call anything child porn again.
We're gonna have to look it up.
Okay, sure. We don't want to be insensitive.
CSM. I don't know.
Okay, that's my homework assignment.
I think
to watch
CSM,
Kids.
child sexual material, or something like that. So that's what we're going to try to get you to stay away from.
I thought you were assigning me homework for this week.
No.
Okay, so I'm going to watch Kids.
And I'm going to watch Empire Strikes Back.
I watched that too with my dad. That one was equally. It didn't hold up because that's the one that everybody jerks off to. Everybody's like,
really?
Oh, The Empire Strikes Back. It's the best one.
I was waiting for Luke, I am your father the whole time.
Yeah, you're going to have to wait till Empire Strikes Back.
That's why I started to think about that during this conversation, yeah.
But also that one, too. Like, Luke's got to go get trained in The Empire Strikes Back, and he just, like, his ship just fucks up, and he crash lands on a planet. He's looking for Yoda, and he happens to crash land directly into the right spot, and Yoda's like,
into my backyard you have followed on your X-Wing fighter. Now I must train you.
I'm like, how plausible is that?
I have another complaint. Luke Skywalker, his aunt and uncles are all incinerated.
They get incinerated.
Doesn't shed a tear. Doesn't really show almost any emotion at all. He decides that he now believes in the Force. But that's another thing is like, why do I care about this Force? They're talking about how magical it is the whole time. I'm like, okay, you have this stupid Force that you've created for this movie. Why am I supposed to care about it?
Yeah, and it's also like it's very like Christian. The imagery is very Christian. The Force is power of prayer.
Hey, we're in the future and we have these like this amazing technology, but somehow when me and you fight, we're both going to produce these like glowing beams and just sort of bing, bing, and it's just whack it.
It's sort of gay, right?
It's just so stupid.
It's like the gayest color, like bright green and red.
Right.
It's like I don't know, Jolly Rancher colored, and it's just the imagery of two cocks clashing against each other.
Right.
While these dudes are wearing capes and speaking in English accents.
I kept thinking about technology and how our current world compares to Star Wars, though, when I was watching it. Like at a certain point, R2-D2 like sends this like he's carrying this message with him, and it's Princess Leia explaining shit to Luke Skywalker, and he sort of like beams it and creates this visual, and I'm like, well, that's basically like a phone. Like he recorded a video, and then now we could just do that with this, and we don't need like a big trash can just sort of clunking around the whole universe.
Hanging out with a fucking thing that looks like a human and is completely gold.
There is no. Like, there's violence and there's shit blowing up, but you never see somebody, like, dismembered. Oh, no, there's, like, a fight in the bar, and he, like, cuts somebody's arm off for talking shit to him.
I think that's Greedo.
With the lightsaber. Boom, cuts the arm off.
You're right, though. The only people who really get fucked up are Uncle Owen and Aunt whatever her name is.
Right.
And you're right. Like, that is... I mean, you and I got a lot of shit this week for being unkind or being insensitive about house phone. But I mean, Luke Skywalker, dude, you're right. Just jets out of town.
He walks up. They're incinerated. They're burning, smoldering corpses are just sitting there. And he's just kind of like, all right, well, fuck this shit. I'm gonna go do battle with y'all.
Did he even bury him? Because I feel like Jawas or sand people probably came by and fucked their corpses.
I liked, at a certain point, I already knew it was going to happen because I'm like so familiar with like the sort of tropes that have maybe evolved from Star Wars that I'm watching Han Solo be this like cold-hearted dude who's a bounty hunter and he's not going to go help them do battle or whatever. And then it just so happens that he grows a heart and he actually shows some character development and he does it. But it's like, I feel like I've watched too many other movies that basically like parody or are based on that, that it was like, oh, I remember this from a lot of other cinema.
They in the magazine I read, like sometimes when I'm at airports, because I have the same mindset you do that I need to learn new stuff for podcasting and for videos. So I bought one of those thin airport magazines on Star Wars. George Lucas said that moment when Han Solo comes back to help them at the Death Star, he said when he first watched a test screening, he told himself, if the audience doesn't cheer when Han Solo comes back at the Death Star, the movie doesn't work and my career's over.
Right.
He knew that if it didn't work out there and nobody cheered or got excited, that none of the movie made sense. There was no emotional resonance and he was done. And he said in the 70s, when that test screened for the first time, he said the audience was going insane when Han Solo finally came back. Probably because the whole thing, like I'm not here to save you and the princess, kiddo. I'm here to save my own hide with my Wookiee. Like that tough outlaw kind of guy who ends up developing a heart has become so cliche since then. But at the time, that was, a unique element of storytelling, maybe.
Yeah, I feel like Empire Strikes Back. Now, having had this conversation, I actually am kind of excited to watch it. But I was trying to look up like good Star Wars meta. I want to find like the beige frequency of Star Wars, something that'll really be deep in there and like tell me all the weird stuff that's going on that I don't know about. Because like, isn't Star Wars supposed to be like a metaphor for trans people or something? Or like,
there's no way that's true.
Or was that like Game of Thrones?
There's no way that's true, dude.
Or isn't it about communism or something?
It was definitely about totalitarianism.
Okay.
Or I mean, maybe it was commenting on America too, like the America and like England's imperial desires.
I always have to like watch the movie and then like and consume it just as what's going on screen, and then sort of pull back and like try to think about, oh, okay, this is all about society. It's just being taking place in space.
The new ones are probably because there's been 3 trilogies, and the newest set of trilogies where like the chick was the lead and like the stormtroopers are black. That was probably about trans ideology. Yoda probably came like,
Young Padawan, before I can graduate you, announce your gender. You must.
I like how all roads end with trans people in this podcasting environment we've created here.
The doctor makes guess he does at gender at birth. Your true gender you find after you complete your training.
We should make a trans Star Wars.
Much money we will make.
All right, I had enough. You good? Anything else we should know about?
I'm just gonna keep reading my child porn book and report back to you on Monday.
Good.
Thank you, everybody.
Let me know you find. Danny Mullen, Adam 22, Sledgelords. We out.